All right, man. Christopher Lawrence Kelly, nice to meet you. I'm Christopher James Gonda. It's almost like our parents were like, let's use the same amount of syllables and stuff and name them the same, give them the same haircut and beard.
Yeah. We're your parents. So I don't know when you did the shave, but we're your parents or any of your family remotely appalled by the choice, or did they welcome it?
It's always this funny thing because, like, I remember growing up hearing that, the hair loss is a recessive gene on the mother's father's side. And my grandfather had this crazy full head of hair until the day he died at 90. And my brother, who's younger than me, has this awesome full head of hair. My dad does not. And so I don't know how I got the non recessive gene, but I just had to start to get thin. And I was like, I'm just going to rock the shaved head. And thankfully, my dome is well shaped. You?
For sure. So I don't know that it was entirely necessary yet. It was just something where so during the pandemic, I was so bored that I dyed my hair purple. I have well, fairly dark hair, so I had to bleach it first. And bleaching it at home, from what I understand, you're not really supposed to let the bleach like touch your skin. Like, you're supposed to avoid it as much as
Mhm.
humanly possible. And it just went on there and like it fucking burned, dude. So once the dye ran out, and then it was just blonde for a while, and once the color started coming back in, I buzzed it, and then after it grew back, I don't know if it did change or not. But mentally, I was just noticing that, like, as I would push my hair that way, that I like wasn't feeling as much here. And I was like, dude, did the bleach just destroy me? Like, I don't know, but I have enough insecurities without worrying about like if my hair looks shitty. So I just took it off, and it's been liberating. Like, anyone who asks me about it, I'm like, dude, you have no idea. Like, looking exactly the same from here up, no matter what, it rules. It's it's so great.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. When I was younger, my parents used to take us to Florida. So I'm from Toronto, Canada originally, and that East Coast trip was so easy, right? Like that's why there's so many snowbirds going from Canada to Florida because it's just straight down. It's 2.5 hours. Boom, you're in tropical
Hmm.
paradise. But I used to use sun in, like so. I'm like a teenager. The grunge scene's popping off, and there was this sun in spray where you could spray your hair, go outside, and boom, blonde. And I swear to
Right.
God, man, that stuff must have burnt some follicles somewhere.
Dude, the chemicals that it's been historically, like, for a long time, was like normal to put on your skin, like all the new stuff that they're having to do for sunscreen and things like that, because they're like, oh no, the old shit's terrible, don't use that. Like, oh god,
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm gonna find something one day, hopefully not, but yeah, I believe it.
100%. Keep an open mind. Like it's just because something is said to be safe, that doesn't mean that it's going to be safe. Uh, Man, what is that thing that they put in houses all the time? And asbestos. Asbestos was like the
Asbestos.
biggest thing, and everyone was using it. Now it's like, oh my god, this thing causes. And now you got to pay an arm and a leg just to have it removed, specially because it's so
Hmm.
terrible.
Yeah,
Live and
horrific.
learn. Sometimes
I
you
know.
have hair, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Let's dive right into some mindset shit simply because I didn't know like particularly where to start with you. Usually there's some kind of aha moment. And just before our conversation, when I was relooking at my notes, I kind of said, okay, maybe this is the right path. So we've got, and I know this is not all of the history, but it's leading somewhere. So we got like Altered Image, Galactic Empire, Alustrium, Hillhaven. There's so many other projects as well that you're associated with. I'm a big believer in perseverance and persistence. I even have a couple PPOP sayings. One is put passion on paper. The other is perseverance equals pursuit of passion. That when you're pursuing your passion, perseverance is easy because you're just going to keep going over time. Talk to me a bit about this concept and like how you have persevered so much in your career so far? What keeps you going and motivated?
Man, I would love to try. And I should also premise this by saying, like, I'm inherently kind of a self-deprecating person, and I'm also terrible at taking compliments. So heads up. But all that being said, like, I wish that I could I wish that I could attribute it and say that like, oh, it's just a matter of like discipline and like keeping your head down and doing the work and being patient and all that stuff. But in the moment, I rarely ever feel like I'm doing those things. You know what I mean? Like, I think I attribute my career for the most part to basically two things is just stubbornness and dumb luck. You know, that is genuinely what it feels like to me. Like, and I'm
Mhm.
not being falsely modest. I recognize that, like, obviously, I spent a lot of years learning how to play an instrument and figuring out how to produce things and write songs and all that kind of stuff. And those abilities don't just come from nowhere. So it's not that I am just like pretending that like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing." It's just that um I feel like the better that you get at something, the more acutely aware you become of your shortcomings. And I've always been acutely aware of my
Mhm.
shortcomings, both as a musician and as a human. Um, and a lot of that, I think, probably stems from, I'm sure there's some sort of, social childhood trauma that made me not like myself too much. But I'm just I'm so enamored with so many people that are now technically my peers, um, in
Mhm.
terms of just their sheer ability on whatever instrument or whatever discipline that they have, and I don't feel that I'm like anywhere close in a lot of instances. I'll see other guitar players who are sometimes playing lower slots than I am in my gig on festivals and stuff, and I'll be like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like, I genuinely, I mean, I have like the most insane imposter syndrome. Like, I genuinely believe that it's only a matter of time before the people who employ me realize that I suck. Um, and and but at the same time, it's the only thing that I've ever had any interest in, and um, I don't necessarily want to say severe because I am able to like focus on things, but I have ADHD that has, been a detriment to me in certain ways in the past, especially in school and things like that. I wasn't a terrible student, but um I needed the threat of severe consequences in order to like remotely try to buckle down because I just didn't care about school at all. Um and
Mhm.
once I started, like, once even actually before I started playing guitar, when I decided that I wanted to play guitar, that was it. Like, there was no other option. Um uh you'll hear very commonly, parents or um even just insert third party here explaining that it's probably a good idea to have a backup plan, and because it's a really tough industry to get into, and the same goes for being, a professional athlete or something like that. It's like the chances of making it are like super super tiny, and so like you should make sure that you're not going to be fucked if it doesn't work out. And that is sound advice.
Mhm.
Like, I can't sit here and tell you like don't listen to those people, but to me, having a plan B was accepting failure from the jump, because especially if it involved something that required like any kind of extensive degree. I did go to college, but I went to a for-profit chain of art schools for audio engineering, so you can imagine how useful that has been. um so if it was like, oh well, I want to be in music somehow, but I'm also good at math. I'm not good at math, but let's just say that that was my other, my like normal people talent. So, okay, I can be an accountant. So I'll go to school for accounting and then I'll do the music thing on the side. Well, in all likelihood, I would wind up an accountant at that point, and I didn't want to, so my whole thing was just like, why am I gonna, like, I went to college because I felt like I had to, because I came from relative
Mhm.
means. I was fortunate growing up, and my parents went to college, and so that was just the thing that you did. Um and uh and so I went, but I did my best to go for something that felt suitable to me. And I didn't want to go for music either, because I had seen music programs, and I was like these people are working guitar, not playing guitar. You know what I mean? Um And that's and in hindsight, I should say I'm not knocking anybody who went to music school and it actually has like a deep and true understanding of their instrument. I genuinely wish that I had put more time into the theoretical side of things now later in life. So it is a very admirable and useful thing to have done that. So I'm not saying that people who did that made a mistake. It's just that and there's probably the
Right.
ADHD too for that, but like it just didn't resonate with me. I didn't want to go to college to be a guitar player and learn how to play scales and you know, map out chord structures and harmony and all of these things that are very very important, but just really felt super boring to me, and it took the joy out of it. I just liked being on stage and playing songs, and that's what I wanted to do. So um it was really just having blinders on to a near in some cases, you know, near catastrophe level things in life. I mean, there was a period of time before I was touring that um, I was already married. I already had a child. I was living in a single wide trailer. I was working for Domino's. I was delivering pizza 60 hours a week, sometimes more. I was working in a really, really bad area where I literally had to carry a gun to deliver pizza. And we were actually told not to use the car toppers, you know, the little light up logos on the top of your car, because it made us a target. We had a lot of drivers get jumped. Our store got robbed at gunpoint multiple times. Luckily, I was never there when that happened. All kinds of crazy shit. You know, scraping to get by. I was on food stamps and welfare and medical assistance. I still don't have health insurance. America. My family has health insurance, but I do not. Uh, and yeah, so like I have seen, you know, about as close to the bottom of the barrel as I would like to see in pursuit of this. And every opportunity that has come my way has just seemed like something that fell into my lap. You know, Galactic Empire was the first band that I ever went on tour with. Well, that's technically not true. The first tour that I ever did was playing for a band called This Is the Apocalypse. It was the last tour they ever did under that name. But that was just one tour, and then the band broke up, or that lineup broke up, or they were rebranding or whatever was happening, and so that was it. There wasn't anything else after
Yeah.
that for a year or
Do you
two.
do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry, I ramble a lot. That's a fair
No,
warning.
no, no, that's totally fine. We've also got, you know, that lag that we're dealing with, which complicates it just a little bit. But like you already said so many incredible things there. And I think going back to my initial question, you've proved my point that ADHD and all these other things aside, it sounds like you at an early age identified your passion, that you just absolutely fell in love with music and or being around music. And so come hell or high water, that's what you've been pursuing ever since. And sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes all it takes is that passion. And then many people will do what you do or did, which is there's no plan B. I'm all in, end of story. And you figure it out. And that's not a bad thing. So let's, before I ask additional questions, let's go back. Like, tell me, you know, Christopher at the young age of blank discovered music, and that was the moment where he said, "Fuck it, this is what I want." What? Tell me that story.
So this is going to sound like a joke. It's not. It's 100% true, and I've told this story before in many different mediums. uh, the moment that I decided that I wanted to play guitar was when I watched the Lindsay Lohan movie Freaky Friday, and she had a garage band with her friends. Her character had a garage band with her friends, and she picked up a red Telecaster and plugged it into an amp and started playing some power chords. And I literally pointed at the screen. My mom and dad were watching with me, and I pointed at the screen and I was like, "That I'm gonna do that." Um, I don't know why that was it. I maybe there was, you know, because she was sort of like the rebellious teenager vibe, and I romanticized that somehow, or maybe it was just that
Mhm.
that was maybe there was that was the first time that I saw a kid, you know, somebody who was not a rock star, you know, pick up and start playing. I didn't realize she wasn't the one playing at the time, of course. Um, uh, but in very quick
Yeah.
succession, it was that movie and then the movie School of Rock with Jack Black came out, and it was like, yeah, okay, it's over. Um, that yeah, that straight up, that was it. It was two
That's
movies.
so
It
funny.
wasn't. It wasn't even a band.
That's okay. I mean, like the inspiration is going to spark wherever it's supposed to. I'm s- I'm I'm laughing that you mentioned School of Rock because a couple of weeks ago I was chatting with modern pop musician from Iceland named Dowdy Fryer, and I mean, he has a song that's now I think it's pushing 300,000 streams now. Like his career's done really well over the last half a decade. Um, but he also said like it was School of Rock that got me into music. I saw that movie and I was like, I this is who I want to be for the rest of my life. And so this passion that you've been pursuing, that's the beauty of life. Like you can get that inspiration, you can have that aha moment at any point in time for the silliest reason, or to us the silliest reason, but it's not because it resonated with you. I think of the movie Hotel Transylvania when he says like I zinged, like when he falls in love. How do you know I zinged? It's the same idea with this passion, and you've been doing that ever since. That's incredible. So you figure out you want to play guitar, you want to be Lindsay Lohan's boyfriend, and or maybe own a red Telecaster, but then somehow you get into production. Is that the, or was it guitar focused and then production? Talk to me about this
Yeah.
musical journey throughout instruments and producing.
Yeah, so the production came much later. So after I after I
Mm.
got my first guitar, it was not a Telecaster. It was red though, and it was a Strat, a little Squire, one of those like $150
Yeah.
Strat packs that you can get at Guitar Center or whatever that you used to be able to get. I don't know if they make them anymore, but uh, started taking lessons at a local place nearby. My teacher was his name was Dan. He was this like, I don't even know how old he was. In my brain, he was like 40 years old, but he was probably like 18. You know what I mean? Like, and because everyone back, every like remotely adult looking person back then was like, this is an old person. Uh he was the this kind of hippie, really into like Hendrix and stuff, and he it took him a little bit to sort of figure out what to do with me because I had a little bit more of a punk rock. And when I say punk rock, the punk rock people are going to get mad at me. I was listening to like Blink and Green Day and stuff like that. Like, um, I still think they're fantastic bands, but I understand that like real punk and whatever. But I was listening to what was popular in punk rock at the time, and
Yeah.
uh, it was once I showed him, I think it was a song, I think it was a Blink song. Yeah, it was a song called Easy Target, which is not one of their hits. But I just really liked the chord progression that it had, and that's when he showed me what a power chord was, which you've got some music instruments behind you. You got some guitars and stuff. So I see a Marshall amp. Okay, you know what a power chord is. So for
Yeah.
anyone who's listening and doesn't know what a power chord is, it's two notes instead of having to play a chord across all six strings and have to maybe bar your finger across the fretboard or something like that, which is much more difficult to do. It's literally one note on one string and another note 2 frets up on the next adjacent string, and so all of a sudden I was able to turn the distortion on and make these sounds that I was hearing on the records that I was listening to. And so that was like, I took to it very, very quickly. And as a quick side note, like that's another reason why I kind of attribute a lot of this to dumb luck, is because if I hadn't had a very quick and obvious knack for it, like if I didn't pick up on it quickly, I probably would have put it down. So um, I was just kind of like lucky that like he would say do this and I could do it. To
Right.
within reason, of course. Um, and shortly after that, my mom came home one day and she was like, "Hey, so you've been watching School of Rock a lot. Um, that's a real thing. Jack Black's not in it, but there is a real program. And it's in Philly. I'm from a suburb of Philly. And she's like, but the owner has just started franchising, and they're opening the very first, like, what it was now the second location, but the first franchised location, like a half an hour from our house. And
Mhm.
so I was the first kid to sign up at that location, and I was in that program. I did switch schools at one point later on, but I was in that School of Rock program um, until I graduated high school. So I was doing a 3 hour rehearsal once a week, a 1 hour lesson. I think it was an hour, it might have been a half hour lesson once a week, and at the end of every quarter, we would do a show. It would be a cover show of some sort. So started with I did The Wall, I did ACDC, I did uh, Kiss, did the makeup and everything, the Ace Frehley whole thing, um, and then did a classic metal show. And I'll stop rambling right there so you can ask me things, because if I start talking about that, it's going to be off to the races again. But yeah, so it was that program that really like cemented me into it. And that was before the production thing ever came in. The production thing came in like near the end of high school.
Alright. Well, I mean, that's super helpful because I love having the timeline and piecing together because it gives me a better idea of, like, who I'm talking to and the makeup, and in fact, I have a question, uh, that ties into one of my guests, but also so well into the ADHD, which I want to bring up now. So, I met this guy a couple years ago, who during like one of our first ever talks said like I have severe ADHD, and it wasn't until I learned how to turn my ADHD into a superpower that my businesses weren't flourishing. But when I realized that it wasn't a hindrance, if anything, it was this amazing pro tool that I had, everything changed. I learned how to hyper focus at certain points of time and take off. His name's Len May. He's a CEO of a big business that focuses on DNA. He he's got an incredible story. There's a music like he does like this daily vinyl thing online, but he's also got a podcast called Everything Is Personal. So I think you should check him out because he talks about these things. And my business partner Lance also, is all over the place mentally. I don't know if he's ADHD or not. And sorry, Lance, I should probably know this. But he's also like you. He's an exceptional writer, and he is the first person to like not be able to take a compliment to say, "Oh no, I'm not that good." Are you a Gemini by chance?
I am, and I hate the fact that you nailed that because I don't like that horoscope shit at all. But my God, yeah, yep, I am.
That's so funny. So you and Lance are one and the same, but that's okay. So ADHD, this is cool to know because it almost sounds like you have been harnessing its power over the course of your career so far and have been focusing on what you love to do, your passion, but also not having a fallback plan, and then maybe leveraging this superpower into I'm just going to keep hyper focusing on the guitar, the production, the music industry, et cetera, over and over again, and that's why you're having this amazing succession of wins and growth along the way. And yes, there's an element of luck, right place, right time. But I do believe that we create luck, we create opportunity by being in the race, so to speak. Tell me about how you feel about your ADHD. Like, when did it start? When were you diagnosed? Do you use it to your advantage, etc.?
I mean, I'm sure I've had it from the jump. I was diagnosed somewhere in probably middle school, maybe. They just said I was ADD at the time.
Mm,
Now I'm not so sure because I didn't really have so much of like the hyperactivity, but and it was just on the physical end of things. Like my mind races like crazy. So, um, and I could be wrong, but I don't know that there's so much of a distinction anymore. Like I haven't really heard anyone use the term ADD in quite a while. They just say ADHD now.
yeah.
So it might have all just kind of been shoved into one thing. Um, but yeah, I was diagnosed somewhere throughout school because my parents are like, what's wrong with him? Like why can't he
Yeah.
remember stuff? Why can't he pay attention? Why does he not remember what we're saying? Um, and I got put on not Adderall, but it was much more mild than that. It was a medication called Concerta. Um I don't remember what the like key ingredient in it was or whatever, but it definitely helped and it leveled me out. And at one point, fast forwarding a bit, when I was in college, I got back on it again, um, because, well, for two reasons. One, because I wanted to be able to actually pay attention in my classes because it was something that I cared about finally. Um,
Mhm.
but it was also because there was the benefit of it being an appetite suppressant, and I have struggled with my weight for my entire life. Uh, so that was a welcome bonus. Um, and then I went off it again. And then the last time I tried getting back on it, it was much harder to get it because once you're an adult, they think you're going to make meth. So there's a lot of red tape in order to get ADD medication or ADHD medication when you're a grown man. and but when I finally did get it, it was while I was still doing delivery, and there would be days where I would just like I'd be driving and I'd have my coat on. It's the winter time, and suddenly I would just fucking hate the way that my clothes felt, and I would just rip my fucking jacket off, and I like it
Mm.
was I was like, now I understand why they're talking about the meth thing. Like I got it. So that was the last time that I took it. That was probably close to 10 years ago at this point. Um, so those are like the three main stints. But yeah, that last one was not great. But as far as using it to my advantage, um, I'm sure I have, and there definitely are scenarios in which I can hyper fixate. If I if I'm on to something creatively, I lock in. But I also, and this is, I think, well, maybe it's not. I don't want to say it's just started happening, but I feel the effects more severely now, and I don't love it. The anxiety component that comes with it, or maybe it's a separate thing. That maybe the anxiety is from something else, but um, when I know I have to do something, or if I decide, I'm gonna go downstairs and I finally have some time. I'm gonna go downstairs and do some writing today, or even just in a hotel room. I mean, I've made so much of Hillhaven's material in a hotel room or in a bus lounge or whatever. Um, and But now it's like the thought, like I put the computer on the desk and like just the act of like taking it out and opening it up. I'm like, nope, like can't do it. And I step away and I don't do anything. So it's like um sometimes it locks me in, and other times doing the most menial of tasks like answering an email um just seemed like the most insurmountable thing. And I do my sort of
Mhm.
jokey motto is like, "That's a problem for future Chris," um and I just file it under problems for future Chris. Yeah, so it sometimes can. I don't know actually that I've ever really felt like, oh, it's a superpower. When I hear people talk about it, I get it, I understand, and I know that there have been points where I've I've tapped into that, um, but it doesn't feel too much like a superpower most of the time. It is often the source of the worst parts of me, and just the worst habits and impulses, and things that have nearly destroyed my life in the past. I've
Yeah.
realized a lot of those things can be attributed back to the fact that I have that ADHD, and I just have that like want or need for like constant immediate stimulation of any kind. Um, because like the second that things go quiet, it gets really loud in here, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So um I am very
Mhm.
interested in your friend's podcast to hear, how he's figured out how to harness it and things like that, because I would love to feel like I was in control of this. It would be sick.
Well, I don't think there's like any one answer and everyone's different. And just because something works for the majority of people with it, it doesn't mean it'll work for all of them. But it's worth checking out. It's Len May. I'm by no means like affiliated. I just find him fascinating, and I thought it was topical that I just spoke with him. Maybe you're doing some of these things and don't even realize it. I was going somewhere with this initially because I happened upon an interview you did a little while ago with 100% Rock, and the very last question was asking you if you could musically go back in time and be part of a recording session, et cetera, et cetera. Which would it be? Comically, you said Def Leppard's Hysteria, and I just talked to Rick Allen and his wife Lauren Monroe like a few weeks ago. They're both
No shit.
phenomenally fascinating. I mean, he's just like the story that he tells about when he lost his arm and how he came back and the mindset behind that was just super cool. But I was like,
Very
what are the
inspiring.
odds that that's the album this guy picked? Yeah. But you pick this album and you specifically start to talk about like the minutia and the detail and how like hyper diligent they were about every detail of the production of that album. And maybe for you that's so cool because that's part of how you are wired, that you go in to detail more than the average person would, which ironically my business partner and friend Lance, he's also like that. He's like, here are all the details of the egg, and I'm like, dude, I just want an omelet. Why are you telling me about the history of the egg? But it's cool.
Right.
Thank you for telling me that. Like, I want to know that. But that, what do you think with
So
production and
yeah,
ADHD?
yeah, I think, and it's the same kind of double-edged sword for me because there are the times where I lock in and I'll do layer after layer after layer, and I'll sit there for hours just dialing things and doing automation and just subtle level changes, and eventually I have to remind myself that perfect is the enemy of done. Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes the idea of like, I have 4 guitar tracks here, and I have this other one, this other idea, but I feel like it should be a different sound. So all I have to do is just make another track, put that other sound on it, and record it. But my fucking brain rejects it like a baboon heart. Like it's just like, no, we have it's there. Like, why? No, we don't want to do. You know what I mean? And I literally sometimes have to like mentally fight with myself or like walk away for a little bit. And so then the first thing that I do when I come back, like I'll record the idea on the wrong sound just so I don't forget it. And then when I come back, the first thing that I do is like, okay, make the new thing, drag it down. Okay, now we have the sound that we want. You know what I mean? Like, so I do really like
Mhm.
I do have those sort of and I have to make sure that it's clear that I don't mean this in any sort of like poking fun or derogatory type of way. But that sort of like borderline autism kind of thing where like there's just like the classic one is trains, right? Where they know everything about a train, like a type of train or something like that. Like there are things like that. Hysteria is one of them, where I really, really like knowing everything about it and like doing the deep dive, and I'm like so fascinated by it. And then there are other things that are also part of my life and sometimes an even more like important part of like my workflow or something like that, where I really should dive in and learn how this thing works, but I'm just dedicated to operating on the bare minimum because I like it's this clash between um being inherently a fairly lazy person. And I think a lot of that comes from the sort of anxiety side of things too. So I don't necessarily know if it's laziness. It's just like not wanting to do anything because it feels like too much.
Mhm.
Um, but there's the what I call laziness and the like, mind racing. What if we do this? What do we do with this? It's like so. It's just it's constantly a war. But yeah, I mean, I do think that in the moments where I'm able to lock in, like that's definitely, the ADHD kind of taking the wheel and being allowed to flourish instead of being, suppressed in some sort of way.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I just had this realization. So when we started talking today, we were doing that guest to guest segment, and the question just happened to be about LSD. Len does a lot of work with hallucinogenics in a controlled environment, and he said that he had a guest on recently too that was this is I swear to God, this is not a plug for Len. This is just really, like,
Yeah, I believe you.
coincidental. Um, he he had a guest on that was, like, former Marine that left the Marines, I believe, and then became a monk, and then left monkhood and is now doing something with his life, but was also talking about, hallucinogens and how it had helped. And I don't know, maybe there's something with the psychotropic drugs, like, the shrooms, the LSDs of the world that help with that part of the brain. I don't know, but it's worth exploring. Drugs aside, like, what do you do currently to stay focused, to stay on task, and to be able to not just work on, other albums and producing and writing for other albums and other bands altogether, but then also like creating your own music in multiple bands and then touring and playing with other artists around the world? You're in Turkey now, which I want to talk about. Like, how do you wake up in the morning? How does Chris Kelly say, like, yo, today we're getting this shit done, end of story?
So quickly touching on the psychedelic thing, that everything that you just talked about is what has my interest peaked for the last couple of years of just like, so
Mm,
I've heard a lot of people talk about how like they'll things that are much worse than ADHD, trauma and like war flashbacks and all kinds of shit, and they do controlled or uncontrolled, whatever it is, they have some experience that just seems to just realign everything, and it's certainly an appealing idea for sure. But I also grew up with the DARE program as a child, where they're like, if you do anything that gets you high, it'll kill you. So so I have that. It's like the Catholic fear. You know what I mean? Um, but as far as man, right now, I got to be honest. I hate to be in sad boy mode. It's just right, and I think it's just because I let myself get overworked. I think that's the if there's one thing that I can try to say that I should do, or that maybe I can recommend somebody else do, is try to be aware of when you have enough on your plate. And it's really easy to do that as a third party, as a spectator, seeing somebody else. I'm really good at giving advice. I'm very terrible at following it, especially when it's mine. Um, but recently we had a Hillhaven show. This was just over a month ago at this point. And the lead up to that show is it was the first headlining gig that we had ever done, and relatively low stakes. I mean, it's not like we weren't headlining Madison Square Garden, you know what I mean? So um
mm,
it's something that I've done a million times in my life, but it was just this project is something that like I am everything in this, and that's not like a stroke of the ego. It's just that I'm the one who writes it and records it, and and does all the press, and designs all of the logos and the merch and edits the videos and whatever. So like I'm a control freak on this, right? And so I really wanted it to go well, because the first show that we had ever done didn't go as well as I would have liked it to. The crowd seemed to really enjoy it, which I'm very thankful for, but I wasn't happy. And so there was a lot of stress
mm,
logistically and creatively, and just a lot of pressure that I put on myself leading up to that show. And then, normally, maybe not normally, but ideally, when there's a big project that you've been working towards, and it's finally out there and it's done and it all went well, you can just go like, all right, we got it. Maybe take a couple of days to recover, whatever. You don't necessarily have to jump right in, but that wasn't the case. I jumped on a flight to Europe the next day, and I've been on tour ever since. And I think that it led to pretty quick burnout. Um, because I have not been productive on this tour at all. Usually on off days, I'm either working in my room and I'm writing, or maybe I'm doing that in the green room. And on off days, I'm taking my camera and I'm going wherever in the world I am, and just getting lost, and taking photos, and enjoying the fresh air, and walking 14 miles in a day just because I want to keep seeing stuff. And um you know, that's another area where I guess maybe the ADHD becomes a good thing. But on this tour, I mean, my sleep schedule's
mhm.
been really fucked. That's another thing when I hit when I'm approaching burnout, I want to sleep a lot. Once I'm burnt out, I barely sleep at all. Um, and so that's that. I've been having insomnia for the last couple of weeks and whatever. So, like, I think the biggest thing, kind of doing a full circle here, is just the trying to be aware that you're overworking yourself. Maybe not even that somebody else is overworking you, but um, my roles with
Yeah.
Hillhaven and my roles with my touring gig are very, very different. Hillhaven, it's all my vision, and I dictate what does and does not happen, and it's the exact opposite out here. So it doesn't really matter how I'm feeling on any given day or how much sleep I've had or whatever. Like, I got to go do a show. So there's a different kind of pressure that comes along with that. You know what I mean? So right now I'm not doing too much at
Hmm.
all to stay focused and to keep myself on track. I'm just kind of making sure that I'm doing what I've got to do, but compartmentalization and making sure that you don't get too overwhelmed in what you're doing is probably the only thing that I would be able to recommend.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice, and it also sounds like that's literally what you're doing is you're trying to make sure that your plate has the right amount or a balanced amount every day possible, and then being conscious of that. And that doesn't mean that whether one person does one thing or 10 things is good or bad. I think you have to like work your way up to that. If you take a plate, you can grow the plate, expand the plate, and handle more stuff, or you can reshape stuff on the plate and have it fit better and ultimately fit more. But all of that takes work to get there. And the underlying fact is that you're being conscious not to be overloaded so you can keep performing at the same level without going too far off track. Does that sound
Hmm.
accurate?
Yeah, for sure. And being kind to yourself
So,
when you do go off track. That's important too, which I'm also bad at.
100%. And that leads into kind of like I got a couple questions left for you. So that leads into this idea. So you mentioned like weight issues and ADHD. There's a lot of personal stuff that you've shared today, which I really appreciate. The whole point of this, conversation and podcast is to have a real talk. Do you find it difficult to talk about things like that? Have you, are you an open book? Is it hard? Do you push yourself? Like, where are you on the authenticity scale when it comes to the deeper, more personal things?
Um, I would say I'm, probably. I like to think that I'm more of an open book. There are definitely certain things um that I am able to talk about fairly easily. Um, my shortcomings, or at least my surface level shortcomings of being one of them. It's not something that I'm too uncomfortable talking about. I think because uh I guess I just sort of I joke about it a lot, and I guess it's a coping mechanism that I probably, or a defense mechanism that I probably developed at a young age, of just sort of like, I'll draw attention to it so you don't have to, kind of thing. Um, but the but there are things that I would struggle to talk about, and sides of myself, and past mistakes, and stuff that I'm not proud of, that would be very difficult to really open up to somebody about. Um, and there have been times, especially recently, where I'm like, feel like maybe therapy might be a good idea. um, just just to have that objective, and sort of neutral third party to just like brain vomit on for a while, every
Mhm.
now and again. But yeah, I mean, I would say that in most cases, like, I there are very few topics that I would be like, v- you know, genuinely opposed to covering in a conversation, even with somebody that I just met, like you. You know what I mean? So in it most
Yeah.
just about anything that you would wind up touching on with, it's a casual friend or something, someone that you've just met or something like that. Like, I'm generally pretty open about most of it.
Yeah. Well, it seems that way, and I appreciate it. It's funny, like there's so many misconceptions about therapy and coaching and counseling, and we have all these ideas in our head of a couch and a doctor and then pills. It's not that at all. It comes down to being this, just having a conversation. And sometimes someone is skilled and they know how to hold up a mirror, and then you start to see the answers that you need to. You have aha moments. You pivot and change. That's really what it comes down to. And I stress doing therapy or coaching or anything like that for everyone, because you don't have someone that's just going to be an echo chamber and say, yeah, 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 I agree with you. You have someone that might counter or push back. You have someone that's going to hold you to account with these things. But also, when you just say these things, half the time, just by taking those words and ideas and putting them out, it takes away the big scary, because you're like, oh, I said these things and this person didn't shoot me or flee the room. Like, they've created a
Right,
safe
right.
space where they said, yeah, this is normal. I've heard way, way, way worse before, so don't feel bad. So I endeavor to do that with this, but like, absolutely would recommend to you, fucking do it, man. It's only going to help you and continue with that pursuit of passion that you have with the growth. Um, I'm not preaching at you. You do you. I want to
No,
talk
that's
about
a no, that's all
Dead
right. I
Doesn't Hurt,
appreciate it.
and I want to just quickly ask. Thanks, man. I want to talk about Dead Doesn't Hurt, but also, like, when we first started talking, you said like, "Sorry, my internet's spotty. I'm in Istanbul, which I've been blessed to have visited once before as well. I've got a really funny I got actually a couple funny Istanbul stories, but this isn't about me. This is about you. What do you think of, world traveling and your mind and your appreciation for other people and cultures? Like, I was blown away by the story that you told earlier, and I'd love to unpack that in the future with like the pizza delivery and the shootings and the gun and like trailer park and all this stuff. Like, that's wild to think of you there, and now you're in this hotel room in Istanbul. Tell me about your experience with travel and how it's changed you.
Yeah, well, it certainly spoiled me, I'll tell you that, like, it's you can see behind me, like, I'm not in a shitty room right now, you know what I mean? Like, it's fairly ornate in here, and
Yeah.
now I this is the first hotel I've seen in Turkey, so maybe they all look like this, but they don't all look like this everywhere. Um, uh, it's yeah, it is it it's weird, and a lot of touring people will say similar things if your family members at the classic thing is Thanksgiving or whatever, right? They'll be like, oh, you must have seen so many amazing things, and for the first good bit of touring, which honestly I was lucky to kind of bypass for the most part. I didn't have to do so much grinding on tour because my Star Wars band went viral by mistake, you know? So, we certainly weren't making a
Yeah.
ton of money, but we were making enough money that like we could tour in a bus, like pretty much right off the bat. I did one van tour with Galactic Empire, so, um, uh, and then a couple others with like smaller things. Um, but even with that, even being on a bus, and in some cases, especially being on a bus because it's very expensive, um, you kind of see the inside of your bus and then you see the inside of the venue. If you're in a big enough production, maybe you see the inside of a hotel room. Um,
Mhm.
Nowadays, because I'm involved with a project where the artist is very, very active on stage and needs, recovery time. I'm fortunate enough to get a decent amount of off days on tour. It's very rare that we do 2 shows in a row. Even rarer to do 3 in a row. So usually there will be some sort of day off in between shows, and that's given me a lot of opportunity to go walk around places and take in cultural things and just sort of like not learn in terms of like going to a museum or reading plaques or anything like that, because as anyone with ADHD will tell you, reading is like our least favorite thing on earth. But uh just immersing yourself in what's around you and just like allowing yourself to like feel and enjoy the energy that's in a given area is something that I'm really
Mhm.
grateful to be able to experience. I've had a lot of time in Japan, um spent a lot of time in Tokyo, Got to go to Kyoto this year and a place called Nara, which has this sanctuary where there's the thousands of these deer that are local just to that area, and they're completely unafraid of humans. And literally, if you walk up to one, it bows to you. I have a video of it of this. It's insane. Um, and we were there in like middle of cherry blossom season. I mean, my allergies were trying to kill me, but it was gorgeous. So like I've been I've been very, very fortunate in my career, and in my short time in this gig, um, 6 years or so, that I've gotten to, like, actually see places this time. It used to just be that you just kinda see a couple of buildings. I I was in London, like, 5 or 6 times before I ever saw Big Ben. You know what I mean? So, it was only last year that I actually did a
Mhm.
proper walk around London and just let myself get lost. So, but it certainly gives you an appreciation for, like, just differences among people, and makes you more, kind of worldly. And I don't necessarily know that it's something that has, I mean, I'm sure it has to a degree, but it's not really something where I've had some sort of like, political epiphany of like, we're doing everything wrong. It's just, um, but it does make you more understanding of, of other people's mindsets, and, and makes you question some things about
Mhm.
where you might live or where you might be from. And um you spend enough time in a certain city that you really enjoy, and you're like, fuck, do I want to move here? um
I went to high school in Prague. I was really lucky to have that experience, and sometimes experience kind of befalls us by force, not choice. My parents moved, and I had no choice because obviously I'm going to go with my family wherever they're going as a 14-year-old. And then the school that I went to happened to do class trips every year. And this one year, towards the end of high school, we did Istanbul and had all kinds of awesome experiences. But I'll never forget going to a Turkish spa. Boys and girls are in different spots, and they give you like this tiny towel that barely covers you, like an Adam and Eve size towel. And I don't know, I ended up having a massage, but you're in this room with everyone there, and there's this round, massive slab. And this huge 300-pound dude is just like throwing me down, and my towel's falling off, and I'm all embarrassed and trying to move the towel, and no one cares. He doesn't care. He's like, don't move. And just beat the shit out of me. But you know what? It was awesome. And I learned and I grew and my mind opened.
Dude,
So
spas
go
and
have one while you're there.
saunas. Yeah, spas and saunas around the globe are strange. My favorite place, I think my favorite place in Europe is Oslo, Norway. It was Madrid for a long time, but Oslo has really taken it. And we just spent a few days up there last week, and just unbelievable time. And then right in the middle of the World Cup when Norway just won, and like the energy was
Yeah.
just like, oh, dude, it was like, and because during the summer, I mean, during the winter, I'm sure it's fucking brutal, but during the summer, the sun sets at midnight and it starts coming back up at 2 a.m. It never really gets dark there, So um, uh, like, and especially as somebody who's had some insomnia recently, like that's awesome because you can just keep walking around and everybody's still up. Um, but we did one of those floating saunas out there, and luckily you don't have to be naked in those. Because I didn't want to have that kind of bonding experience with the dudes that I tour with. Um, but it's exactly what it says it is. It's a sauna that is floating on the fjord, and so you do the sauna for 15 minutes, and then you go jump in the freezing cold water, and you do the cold plunge. And also, while that was happening, they were doing their midsummer like effigy thing, which is this 20-foot wooden bird statue that they have floating in the harbor, and they light the whole thing on fire. So we're treading water, having just got out of the sauna, treading water in a fjord in the middle of Norway, watching this thing burn. Like, oh dude, it's so sick. um it's an unbelievable experience to be able to get to do what I do at the level that I'm fortunate enough to do it at.
Yeah.
simply because of the luxuries that it affords. And when you get off time, you can actually have off time. And especially as a guitar player, I don't, my job is playing for an hour a night sometimes, so it's pretty difficult to complain, but yeah, the sauna
Mhm.
culture um, differs widely depending on the country that you go to. Oh,
Definitely.
I kind of want to check out the one downstairs here because it looks insane, but it also looks expensive. So
Insane is good. So you know what? For me, these chats are really about my growth and my development as much as potentially being able to help viewers and listeners. And I'm a big believer in positions, not perspective, not opinions, and how it's always shifting. Your position always shifts. And you help me shift a position because I do agree that traveling and experience is any form, it's a form of education. It opens our mind up to different cultures, different people, that there's so many different ways of doing things, but that ultimately we're all very similar at the end of the day. But I've never once thought that, oh man, just because a person's touring around the world as an artist, that they actually have the time to go and explore those things because the schedule is so tight and they have to do their own load ins, load outs, that you might just be like in and out of cities. And it sounds cool because I'm in Barcelona, but you didn't see fuck all. So thank you for clarifying that for me. I now have a better perspective of touring.
of course, yeah. I mean, it's a very you'll see a lot of memes online with people who tour and stuff like that. And it's just, the quote is like, "Oh, you must have seen so many cool things out on tour." And then it's like what I saw. And it's a picture of like one of those truck stop towns where there's like, a McDonald's and a Burger King and a Taco Bell and a whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's what you see on tour most of the time. So when you get to a certain level and you start playing larger gigs and doing things like arenas and amphitheaters and stuff, big festivals like I'm fortunate enough to do, can't take any credit for it. It's not my band, but it allows you to do some pretty cool things.
Well, I appreciate you. You are a very chill dude, and I mean, it's something about the Christophers, right? Or maybe it's the Gemini. Who knows what it is with you? Um, I really appreciate everything that you've shared so far. Let's talk about what got us here in the first place, and that was the pitch about your latest single, "Dead Doesn't Hurt." Um, I know that this story is a little different from your usual tracks, but I thought it was really deep. And for me, when I'm looking for cool guests for this pod, it's like, how can we emote? How can we get into the meta stuff about emotions and feelings and mindset? And this song touches on that. So why don't you tell me about it?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's a little bit different than my usual approach because in the past, this whole project was kind of born out of my own sort of I struggle to use the term trauma because I've led a very privileged life relative to other people, and so the word trauma feels a bit extreme, but that that is what it is, just sort of negative experiences that leave a lasting impact, and sort of using the music as a form of catharsis. But lately, it's nice that my life has actually been kind of cool. So I when I had all my instrumentals put together for this next body of work, it was I kind of had this crisis moment because I was like, I don't have a lot to complain about. You know what I mean? And anything that I try to
Mhm.
complain about, it's like I mentioned earlier, my job, my night 9 to 5 is playing guitar for an hour a night sometimes. So any complaint that I have is sort of like my lobster is too buttery. You know what I mean? So uh this came out of a number of conversations with a close buddy of mine that went through a really bad breakup because he got cheated on. That's the easiest way that I can put it. I've been using the word betrayal in all of the press releases, but even that just it feels like I'm in a Star Wars movie or something like that. It feels like such an extreme word, but that is what it is, right? And
Mhm.
and obviously that's something that can really blindside somebody who's going through it. And in the conversations, we drew a lot of parallels with grief, losing someone when they die. But the key differences are that when somebody dies, it's not just happening to you. There's other loved ones in the mix, and that you can lean on, and also there's the memory that you're able to hold on to. and something to draw positivity from. And we have all of these things and sort of devices in place of they're in a better place or they're not in pain anymore, or, just anything to kind of make us feel better um, about the situation. Whereas in a situation like this, you lose the person, but they're still out there and the memory is destroyed as well because you're kind of questioning everything. And I'm fortunate enough that I've never received something like that firsthand, but I have seen it many times, and I have, on rare occasions, felt what I could only describe as true hatred for another person, and that's a different thing. We hyperbolize it quite a bit. I
Mhm.
hate that band. I hate that band. I hate that guy. I hate that, food or whatever it is. But like when you actually feel hate for someone, it's consuming, it's corrupting. It's kind of all you think about. And that's kind of where the tagline came from because, a lot of times in the hyperbole that we use, we'll be like, oh, I hate that guy. I wish he was dead. But when you actually hate somebody, you don't want them dead because they don't feel anything. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
you want them to feel the same pain that you're feeling. There's like a revenge thing about it, which feels just as extreme as the, when I said, using the word betrayal feels like I'm in a Star Wars movie. It's the same thing of like wanting revenge. You don't really think that in your normal life you could like want revenge over somebody. It feels so like dark and maniacal. Um and it like it not only sort of whatever the experience was can shatter your existence, but like understanding and realizing that you are capable of such feelings has its own negative impact because you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize that I could like feel this way about another person. It's really really dark. And so that's where the concept for the song came from, and that's where the tagline came from of I don't want you dead, but because dead doesn't hurt, right? um
Yeah.
but also in these conversations that we were having, he at one point, and I give him all the credit in the world, he at one point said to me, in a fairly short period of time, was just like, dude, I have tried, like I want to hate her, but I can't. Not because I'm not upset or not because like I think it's okay, but because it's gonna it's gonna kill me. It's going to destroy me
Mm.
if I allow myself to keep feeling this way. So I have to find my own way to let go. And so that is reflected in the song as well. And at one point I asked him, you know, is it okay if I write about this? Because I'm kind of having trouble finding a lyrical basis for some of this stuff. And a lot of the instrumentals were fairly dark sounding and stuff. And I didn't really feel like I had much to go on. And I'm really grateful that he was enthusiastic when I asked him that. But there was also there was a different level of responsibility that came with it too, because it was like I'm not just conveying my own feelings. I'm now having to represent somebody else's, right? And inevitably he's going to hear the song, and I don't want him to hear it and think like, oh, well, you just kind of took it and like ran with it in some sort of generic way, or um kind of embellished this bit a little bit. Whether or not he would have felt that way, I don't really know. But I felt a bit of responsibility to try to reflect the things that he was saying to me in like an accurate way. I wanted to kind of do him justice in that
Mhm.
way. So, um, and I'm really proud of how it came out, and he is very kind of grateful for the way that I was able to sort of portray it. So I'm proud of that as well. And um, the video that we put together, I'm also really proud of that because the biggest kind of hurdle that we had there was like when you're when the word dead is in the title, it's like, okay, well, somebody in the video has probably got to be dead. But when you have that kind of subject matter visually, it's very easy to get into kind of spooky ghost, haunted house kind of vibes. And I really wanted it to be like in an active embalming room, very clinical looking. And turns out there's a lot of legal red tape involved in that. Um, so it was tough to get. So we wound up having to kind of pivot, but we did wind up just locating the props was a pain in the ass. Getting the actual, we had a real embalming table that we wound up
Cool.
finding that had been kind of decommissioned, and um, being able to sort of get across the darkness and the sort of overarching feeling of resentment that the track has, and having that translate through the video in a way that didn't really feel like we were trying to do like a low budget horror movie was really important. And I'm really proud of what we put together. And I'm really thankful for our co-director, Eric Parker, as well, for helping us get that.
Yeah, dude, like the song's amazing. The video is powerful. Like the song alone and the pitch around the song was what asked, like, pushed me to reach out to say, "Hey, can I talk to Chris or can I talk to someone from the band?" We talked earlier today about how much you do, and that's one of the things that didn't come up was the fact that you're also doing stuff with regards to video. I remember seeing in the credits that your name was in the credits of the video. And keep me honest, was it director, producer? Like you had a big role in creating the video too?
Yeah, so I co-directed it, and I edited it as well. Our first batch of videos back in 2024, I did all or most of the filming and all of the editing, and then the stuff we put out last year, we went to somebody else, and I just wound up. Um, there were some things about those videos that we did that I felt like I should have spoken up more in the process, but, and this is no shade at the director that we worked with. It was just something where, he was very confident in what he was doing, and I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna trust him." And then I wound up, feeling like, we could have done something a little bit different. So this time around was just like, "All right, well, if I'm gonna be a control freak about this, then I might as well be a fucking control freak about it." So, but the thing is, I don't have a lot of video know-how in terms of like getting the right shots, the actual like boots on the ground mechanical thing. So that's where Eric really came in, and I was able to sort of convey to him the vibe that we were going for, and tell him the types of shots that I was sort of seeing in my head. And he was the one that really helped like bring that out. And like the fire shots that we have in the video, there's a couple like quick things that have some VFX in there, but for the most part, when it's just the shots of me sort of behind the fire, we rigged up this, like, it was basically a mic stand that had a bunch of clamps on it. We had cardboard in those clamps, and we lit the cardboard on fire and basically placed the camera like right above the edge of the cardboard, so that you actually had like the movement of the air and the blur that's created when the flames are there and stuff like that. And
Nice.
he was definitely a key component as far as that was concerned, and getting all the lighting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I kind of came up with my wife and I came up with the concept for the video, and he was the one that kind of helped us execute everything. So yeah, I do take a very heavy role in the creative side of things, just because I've realized over the last couple of years that if I'm not kind of at the helm of everything, then I tend to doubt, like, very quickly doubt the product that we're putting out. And that's not necessarily a result of anybody doing bad work. It's just, it's a me thing.
For sure.
It all comes out of my brain. I'm the one putting the whole thing together. And so I just kind of feel like I have to be the one to see it through.
Yeah, I mean, retaining some kind of creative control is I wouldn't say it's important, but like so many artists value that. I was talking recently with Jamie French. I think our episode just came out today, and she's had a huge career. She started as just doing YouTube videos and went into stand up and acting, and now into music. And when we were talking about the team and like who works for her, who doesn't work for her, one of the things that she still does to this day is edit all of her stuff because she wants the vibe to be authentically her, and she's the one that has that vision. So I respect, you retaining the creative control. We didn't even get to talk about fatherhood, marriage, all the hardships that come with that. So you and I have to reconnect in the future to dive
Yeah,
more
we'll
into
do
those
another
things.
we'll
But
do another talk for sure.
so let me ask you this one last question before you wrap us up. The thing with the song that's super cool is that using the example of the hatred and the betrayal, it's love, hate, love. To quote Alice in
Mhm.
Chains, uh, the only thing that gets you out of that hate is more love, and it might just be love of the self. And I'm so happy for your friend that he realized that if he keeps hating, he's going to crush himself, and that the only path forward is to let go, is for forgiveness, is for love. You've had an amazing career. It sounds like I shouldn't say had you are having an amazing career. It sounds like you're leading with love in most things too. That you're just you love what you do, you love your art, and that you put a lot of that into everything around you. Is that accurate?
I think it's more of just, you asked about the, where do I fall on the authenticity scale? And
Yeah,
I question that quite a bit sometimes, and um I don't think it's uncommon for, people who have lived for long enough to question, like, am I a good person? Because we all make mistakes and have things that we regret and people that we've hurt and whatever. And so you don't always feel like the best person, but when it comes to this project, it's just like I kind of feel like the only way, especially it's new and it's tough to grow a new band, and it might be, I don't want to say easy because writing a song that people resonate with is not easy, but um might be easier in some ways to just try to think of, what's trending, or oh, this band wrote a song that, is about this or sounds like this, and so if I write a song with a similar approach, then, maybe it'll get attention or whatever. But I just kind of feel like, um as I mentioned earlier, being a self-deprecating person, I'm really aware of, like, when something doesn't feel real,
yeah.
and that's why I don't that's why I try to steer clear of, trying to drape things in too much metaphor or things like that. I grew up in like technical progressive metal where there's a lot of that stuff, and I still really enjoy it. But every time I've tried to write lyrics in that way, I feel like I'm trying to sound more intelligent than I am. It just feels disingenuous in some way. And so, being that this whole thing is like my brainchild, basically, like, I just kind of feel that I owe it to myself and to whoever might resonate with it to sing about stuff that I can relate to in some way, or something that comes directly from me. Because if 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 it's authentic to you and it's real for you, then it will be real to somebody else. And I feel like people are going to be able to sniff it out if it's not,
Yeah.
so I don't necessarily know. I mean, yeah, I do love what I do, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't, but I don't know that I necessarily think of it as like prioritized by leading with love or whatever, because oftentimes when I'm going into the writing process, I'm not feeling a whole lot of love for myself or another person or whatever the situation might be. It's more of just like, there's a catharsis element to it, but I also feel like the song is just it's gonna translate better and it's gonna resonate more, and I'm gonna be prouder of it if I kind of don't allow myself to hold back. If I just say exactly, what the feeling is, and, what the impact of that would be.
Yeah, and for me, that's the marker of authenticity. Where when I say lead with love, I don't mean like everything's positive and roses, and the lyrical content is good, or not good, upbeat. It's that you're doing what you love, what is resonating with you in the moment, and your response is so Gemini because all I can imagine is my buddy Lance like saying the same thing. So I think that you're mad authentic, and the shit you're doing is all passion. Answer one last thing. So you've had this really wicked arc so far, and I'm sure it's only going to continue to grow. Um, what is one thing that aspiring musicians or musicians that would wish to be in your spot have to do for sure to be able to get there?
And the best advice that I could give to anybody is to just keep an open mind, which sounds very broad. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, I came from very, technical, progressive. I've been part of a death metal project since I was 16 years old. Um, and when you're young and you want your life to be, musical or artistic in some sort of way, you tend to have a very kind of clear cut vision of what that's going to look like, right? And in the case of music, it's like, I will start a band, that band will get signed, then that band will get big, and that will be my life. And in a lot of cases, that's not how it goes. It's certainly not how it went for me, right? This doing Hillhaven is something that is a result of being able to have the career that I've had. And in some ways, the lyrical content and the trauma that came from my career as well. So I wouldn't be able to write the way that I do if I hadn't had those experiences. And all of that came from, I mean, it basically came from Galactic Empire. I dressed up like Darth
Mm,
Vader for money for like 3 years. You know what I mean? So um, if you had told, camo short, long haired, death metal elitist breakdowns are gay, Chris. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
15-year-old high school idiot Chris. Um, that like, hey, you're gonna be on the road and it's gonna be your livelihood, but it's gonna start with you wearing a Darth Vader costume. He probably would have had a stroke. You know what I mean? So um it's you have to be able to recognize opportunity when it knocks, and you have to be ready to answer the door. You know what I mean? Because it's, most of the, actually no, all of the gigs, all of the actual like lucrative income generating gigs that I've had have been in some sort of metalcore or metalcore adjacent thing, which is not something that I like even allowed myself to enjoy when I was in high school. You know what I mean? It was like I was in a very specific camp of like there's real metal and then there's everything else, you know?
hmm
And so the fact that the first tour I ever did was with a metalcore band, and then playing with Ice Nine Kills for a little bit, the wearing all of the costumes and wearing makeup on stage, and the gig I wear now, the gig I do now, I'm in a mask and all kinds of stuff. Um, it's very very different from what I had originally pictured, making it to be. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give, is just like understand that you can view just about everything as a stepping stone. And either you realize that, hey, being a hired gun, that's the move, right? And that there are arguments for it, because the tour could end in the green, it could end in the red. It doesn't matter. My paycheck is the same, and that's
yeah.
really comforting when you start getting older. Um, so financially speaking, starting a band in my 30s is a really terrible idea. But uh, but like or you might just one day, like I have, sort of realize that hey, there is an element of that's fulfilling, but I've sort of lost the creative side of things, and I need to find a way to get that back. And
Yeah.
then you can use the connections and the knowledge and the experience that you've gained over however many years, to do your best to kind of propel that forward in whatever free time you have. So there is no right or wrong way to make it. It rarely ever feels like you've made it, even when you have. I mean, I like I said, I play guitar for an hour a night sometimes, and I've paid off my house. That's pretty fucking cool. But I feel like none of us who got into music got into it because we wanted to have a real job. We didn't want to be
hmm
told what to do. We didn't want to have a boss. We wanted to be our own bosses. And so there is still that drive to kind of do my thing. And so that's where all this was born out of. But um, if you're lucky enough to blow up with your own stuff right out of the gate, then more power to you. But there's going to be a learning curve that comes with it, and it's going to be a lot of struggle that comes with that, and kind of rude awakening moments and stuff that you may be able to kind of bypass a little bit if you wind up getting a gig for somebody else. So it just understand that, like, everything is subject to change. But
Yeah.
if you have the opportunity to get out there, just take it, because you'll learn so much, and it's an invaluable experience to do that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Stay focused, but stay flexible as well. You might have a destination or a goal in mind, but life will always know better than you. And life will say, sure, cool. I've heard you. That's where we're going. But I'm taking you on a road or a path there that you will not see coming, and you just have to be open to it. When a door closes, a window opens, and if you are willing to go through that, sometimes the craziest, coolest shit happens, and you will end up where you're supposed to be. So
Right.
perfect advice. Um, I'm so stoked that we got to talk, Chris. And I did say that I would say that I sorry that I would end with this, but like perseverance. That's how we started this conversation, like getting through all the different hardships in the careers. We have had internet issues. We have rejoined multiple times. We went through the publicist afterwards. We reconnected like 3 hours later. Somehow, you and I both got through this thing and we have finished it and it looks amazing. So, thank you for giving me your time, man, and for persevering to get this done. That was a really good chat.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you being as flexible and dealing with my, neuroses at certain points of just like being so frustrated with this internet. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I know I had mentioned that to Shane. Just like, dude, I would talk to this guy for 4 hours. It's been a joy. I just want to make sure that like we actually can talk, you know. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm down to talk anytime for sure.
Amazing. Well, so sign us off. One short last piece of a little advice that you can put in people's pockets and they can take away and remember Christopher Kelly and his words of wisdom. What is it?
No, well, I like I said, self-deprecation. I don't really know how much wisdom I have, but I would really, really appreciate it if you listen to the song that we just talked about. That would be really cool. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. Just look, be kind of tying what I was just talking about and what I said earlier about the lack of having a backup plan and all that kind of stuff. The one thing that I guess I didn't really touch on is that like it's important for you to be smart enough to know what's working and what's not. And that's not all that's easier said than done. You know what I mean? But like if you know that you're onto something, if you have some sort of external validation that like something's working, follow that. But just make sure that you're being as calculated as you possibly can. Nothing is guaranteed, nothing is certain, but you've got a gut feeling, and allow yourself to be stubborn within reason. Um, I'm not telling anybody to give up if something's not working. I'm just saying like pivoting can make all the difference. You know what I mean? So again, just keep yourself flexible, keep your brain open, and just try to be as intelligent about it as you can. And as long as you're enjoying what you're doing something right.